it's what they do is they'll create an emergency, okay, to bring it about, and then it'll never go away, because in order for it to go away, there's got to be a proclamation or something like that. See what I'm saying? Yeah. And this Diet versus Turner case talks about all of that stuff, and it'll go through. It's even got the Lieber Code, which is the rule of war, and so evidence of martial law rule. You have military scripts circulated for money.
With a regiment number on it.
This is military script. There's a it says here, the action of Congress in passing the first legal tender act was placed distinctly upon the ground of the existing imperative need of the government, and the legal tender clause was urged and adopted as a war measure, martial law.
Just want to mention, why do you think they call it the Federal Reserve? Think it has something to do with the reserve forces?
Yeah. So legal tender is military script. You know, there was a guy that was telling me, and he was in Korea when I was in the States. There was a guy that was in Korea when the war was going on, and he was telling me that they used to use military script on their base, and they would take it into town, and they would issue them this military script every once in a while. They'd take it into town and spend it, and then they would they'd change it after a month or 6 months or something like that. They'd change it. I think it was quite a long time, maybe a couple of years. They'd change it anyways, and all of the old stuff would become worthless overnight, and all the local North Koreans would be sitting there at the base saying, "GI, please trade in my military script," because the GIs would get to trade it in for the new stuff, but anybody else that was caught with it was stuck holding worthless paper. See what I'm saying? And so that's what they would do. But notice the interesting thing was this was on a military base. This was on a military base, because that's how they do the martial law too. And military script is a forced loan. The forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. They formed a part of the public debt of the United States.
Confederate
Forced
money?
loans.
Was that Confederate money?
No, that was Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes and U.S. Treasury notes.
In 1860?
1862 and 1863, that was during the Civil War.
Yeah.
Bank of Canada notes are military script. Bank of Canada notes are a legal tender. They're forced loans. Any ones that use them are forced to loan the government money. Bank of Canada notes are promissory notes. When you pay for something with a promissory note, you create a usufruct. If the debt of Canada was paid off, there'd be no paper money in circulation. Think about that. Yeah.
Plus we owe interest.
Huh?
Plus we owe interest.
Well, and they don't create the interest. Evidence of martial law rule. Income taxes collected under military authority. Think about it. Government seizes money without a court order. Government seizes property without a court order. Government seizes bank accounts without a court order. That's all martial law.
Yeah.
As we have said, the federal personal income tax is collected under a military venue within a martial law jurisdiction. Federal Reserve notes are a military script circulated within a military venue. The problem is that people don't understand how the entire United States is covered by a military venue. Under the Social Security Act, there was brought into existence 10 federal regional areas. These 10 federal regional areas are the same as a military venue. Well, what do you think about postal codes?
Yeah.
It is not unconstitutional to circulate military script on a military base. I saw it, I know people that saw it in Korea. As the military base is considered to be a military venue, military script cannot circulate in the civil jurisdiction of the several states. To get around this constitutional bar, the Congress, via the Social Security Act, created 10 military venues called federal regional areas. The problem that Congress realized, while Congress could restructure the government agencies into these federal regional areas, the people could not be identified to be within this military venue, but by their own consent. It's all by consent.
Save us.
The solution was to create another military venue which would trick the people to voluntarily accept recognition that they are within the military venue. Congress solved this problem by creating the zip code.
Yeah.
Zip codes divides the United States into 10 military venues called national areas. When the government, such as the IRS, in the return address of the federal agency is the district, within the regional area the letter is sent from, and on the address of the citizen it was sent to the national area zip code in which it received the correspondence from the IRS. In other words, the correspondence was sent from one of the federal region areas, military venue, to one of the national areas under military venue. Taxing districts are established within one of the federal regional areas, which places the collection of taxes under a martial law jurisdiction. You know, I don't know, you guys know Robin Boulanger?
Yeah.
Anybody know him?
Yeah.
He was telling me, and this is just, it's going on here too. He was telling me that he went and talked to these CEO of the utility companies, and he had the VP of like Rogers or something like that, and he actually talked to this utility company, told him that he had an objection to being accused of being a person. He wanted his name spelled in upper lowercase. He said if you send the bill to the name spelled in upper lowercase and with no postal code, I'll be happy to pay it. And he actually got one to do it. And when they did that, you know what happened? There was no GST.
Ha.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then he said, what happened is another thing he did is they other utilities wouldn't do it. He would talk to them all day long, and they'd say, oh yeah, no problem, we'll do it, and then it never happened, okay? And he said that he had this one utility that, I think it was cable TV or, you know, it was power or something, I'm not sure. Anyways, he had this utility that sent him bills, and he said every month it had come and it spelled in all block capital letters to a zip code, to a postal code. And he'd refuse it, send it back. And then he'd immediately call them up and say, look, you know, you guys sent it to all block capital letters and a postal code, and that's not me. And I'll be happy to pay that bill. Just send it to me in upper lowercase and without a postal code, and I'll be happy to pay that bill. Can you send it back with spelled like that, and I'll be happy to pay it. And he said that went on for 16 months. And finally what happened is he moved and had to change power providers, and they forgave him the bill. You think about it, if you read their code rules and regulations, it's only persons that have to pay for utilities.
Yeah.
So technically, we should be getting it for free.
That's right.
It's our power.
That's right. Anyways, it's all happening right here, right in front of us.
Or another way to deal with that is when you fill out your utility bills, you phone and you tell them to, instead of sending it to the person, send it to the creator of the person, which is the Queen. And so when they send you the new application form, you put the Queen's address and then let them file it with them.
Well, and so that's actually kind of like playing in their venue, though, isn't it? You think about it, and some people can do that. You know, I don't do that because I really, my attitude is there's no honor among thieves, and they're just a bunch of thieves, and I'm concerned that it'll turn into some Trojan horse somewhere or something like that. So I just don't want anything to do with them, and that's my whole procedure is geared around that. But some people were able to get by with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyways, military script circulated for money. Police use rank structure of captain, lieutenant, sergeant. You ever seen that? Police refer to us as civilians. Courts presume everything. Presumption. That's martial law. Yes.
In the justice courts, they're not quite a justice yet, they're called a master. You know, like the master and commander of a vessel.
Right. Right. This is a war over the intrusion of civil law upon common law. The court of Diamond versus Harris calls the civil law, statutory law, superior equity. And then it says here, And this is a quote from that court case. It's difficult to see how the courts of the state are to ignore the common law's rule of decision when it's made so by statute and adopt a civil law, even though it have the merit of superior equity. So they're calling civil law superior equity. That's what they're doing. Yes?
How can we identify if it's Republic of Texas court case or versus whoever?
Huh?
How can we identify a Republic of Texas court title versus, is it just Republic of Texas versus so-and-so?
What?
Like it says there, Diamond versus Harris, right?
Yeah?
So if we see a Texas, Republic of Texas versus somebody.
See at the end, it says Texas 634?
Yeah, it's 1830, yeah. That's taken out of that Diet versus Turner court case in Utah.
Texas,
So I don't understand what you're saying. How can you identify? I mean, there's,
Yeah.
a Republic of Texas court case is gonna be a really old court case.
Okay.
This one here was 1830. Obviously, that one would have been a Republic of Texas court case, for sure, because it's 1830. But that's immaterial to the discussion, whether it's Republic of Texas or anywhere else. What we're talking about is we're talking, in this case, we're talking about civil law, martial law, equity, okay? These are all words I'm sure you've heard, civil law. You know, you go into the courts, the rules of civil procedure, okay? Well, that's just another word for martial law, okay? Anyways, and I want to show you this. In the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. Equity is the power of the government to ignore common law or these other rules, other law, if justice, you know, if it's the right thing to do. Let me put it that way, okay? So the government and equity is governmental power. Anyways, equity has always been understood to follow the law, to have superior equities to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what is called equity in its place. And that's what this judge is talking about. Now, again, you have to understand that this is all he's talking about is in the matrix, okay? It's all talking about in the matrix. Because another thing that he talks about is that, you know, and you've heard it in Canada. I've heard it, where they say there's no common law. Well, actually, that's not true, okay? In their system, there's no common law, that's true, okay? But common law is still here. We just have to know how to access it. And this is what this is talking about here. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by statutes. They would be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by martial law. And that is true in their system, okay? But so what we have to do is we gotta walk away. We gotta walk away from their system and start our own system. Because their system is totally corrupt. I mean, it's been taken over by international bankers, and they're operating it as their own private criminal racketeering enterprise, looking for prize on the high seas of commerce. Listen to this. Alberta Judicature Act, Section 15. In all matters in which there is any conflict of variance between the rules of equity and common law with reference to the same matter, the rules of equity prevail. There's a federal statute, same thing.
Yeah, but if you don't accept the benefit privilege of that statute.
Well, but again, if you want to go into their court, okay, that's basically saying that they can ignore the common law and do whatever they feel like doing. That's what it's saying, okay? If you want to go into their court, then you got to take your chances,
Right.
You know? And that's why we need to set up our own judicial court. And we need to start putting them in their place with our court.
Yeah.
Martial law is really no law at all. It's a dictatorship. What is called proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety in circumstances of great emergency, set aside all law and acting under military power, proceeding which requires to be followed by an act of indemnity when the disturbance are at an end. And that's the US Attorney General's opinion in 1857. That's in that court case. Every nation on the planet is under martial law. Every nation on the planet is bankrupt.
We're in good shape.
Revelations. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. In my opinion, that's martial law. It's describing martial law. The great whore. A whore is someone who sells himself for money, right? The kings of the earth have committed fornication. Well, that sounds like what's going on. Fornication is an illicit activity, right?
It says on the waters, not the land.
Well,
Now, the waters is described as the peoples and multitudes, nations. and
martial law is also known as admiralty maritime law,
Yeah.
right?
Sea of humanity.
Right.
Yes.
High seas of commerce. And here is the mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth.
Rome sits on 7 hills.
This has been going on from the beginning of time. In Leviticus 19:34 it says, "But the stranger that dwelleth among you shall be unto you as one born among you. And thou shalt love him as thyself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Don't you think that the way the children of Israel were enslaved is because they were persons? Ye shall have one ordinance both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. Love ye therefore the strangers, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Isn't that what they did to the Jews? They tricked them into thinking they weren't persons, even though they never were.
What do you mean then, when they were
So you
slaves?
see, basically the German government said everyone's a person but the Jews.
Oh, I see, I see.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Let's,
yeah.
let's take another 10-minute break.
Okay.
And let's come back after that. Just a note that there is a prayer room on the side over here, so if you go out there, if you would not make a whole bunch of noise out there, it'd be helpful. Just another note of interest, talking about Egypt. I phoned Expedia today about an airline ticket, and I asked the girl where she was. She said she was in Egypt. Can
Isn't
you
that
believe
interesting,
it?
eh?
Can you
See,
believe
that's
it?
why they call it industrial. Industrial.
The sovereignty issue about how we're sovereigns, I was hoping to cover that, but I don't think we're gonna get there. But we'll see. Anyway, so I'm gonna try and move it along a little quicker. Again, this has been going on since the beginning of time. We're talking about lending usury. You can't lend usury to your brother, but you can lend it to a stranger. So, sounds like a stranger's a person, because a person has a social insurance number. See what I'm saying? And so there's 2 classes of citizens: those born in the land and those are strangers. Persons. If you're a person, then you get to borrow money, and you're a slave. This has been going on from the beginning of time. But you got to think of it like it's Ford or GM, okay? If Ford or GM makes a rule for their employees, what's that to me? That means nothing to me. You have to quit letting Ford and GM run the country. You want to be free or a slave? Is there a price for your freedom that's too expensive? Do you know who you are? The current government is de facto. It's essentially a gang of pirates who are engaged in obtaining some prize in the high seas of commerce. The only thing that's saving us is the fact that they have an oath of office. De jure government is government of the people, by the people, for the people. It is a government that is owned and operated by the people. I've seen U.S. Supreme Court cases that say that the reason the government had immunity from suit is because it was a de jure government of one of the people. And if you file a lawsuit against it, it's like suing yourself. You can't do that. That's the reason the government had immunity. It's because you can't sue yourself. Yet people sue the government of Canada all the time. Well, that's proof that it's a corporation, isn't it? They will continue to violate your rights more and more every day until we, the people, decide to take our government back. They have taken away the grand jury, they've taken away a common law jury, they've taken away the 12-man jury, now they got these petite juries. The juries you see these days is a complete farce. Common law has all the solutions that we need. Common law is we the people. Common law is God's laws found in the Bible. Common law is 800 years of jury trial decisions in Old England. The grand jury, sections 51, 52, and 61 of the Magna Carta provide for a grand jury. Grand jury operates in the county. You need a de jure county judge to swear in the grand jurors. You hold an election for a county judge. When I was in Ontario, there was a regional municipality of Durham. There was also a Durham County. And I went put in my paperwork, because I was living in Uxbridge, and that was in Durham County. Actually, it was in the regional municipality of Durham. But I put in my paperwork, actually I didn't live in the regional municipality, because that's a corporation. But they thought I was in the regional. Anyways, the point is I put on my paperwork Durham County. No problem, not a problem. Put on everything Durham County. So the point is Edmonton County is still here. You just have to start to operate it. And I'll bet you know, Robin Boulanger has this procedure where they go and notice the government officials about things. So put out flyers all over the place. Take the flyers to the judges and everything. I'll bet you if you did that, find out about how to do that from Robin, and you went and served the notices to all the judges that you're going to form your own grand jury and start bringing indictments against criminals, and they might even give you a place to do it. I'll bet you. I bet you can talk them into doing that. I bet you. You'd have to just be patient and do it over time. I bet you could get a place to do it. You know, when I was in Ontario, they went and gave me this ticket for no seatbelt, right? And I went and sent them a notice of demand. It was a lot more primitive than this. But I sent them a notice of demand where I demanded to see the contract. And of course, nobody knew anything about it when I got to court. And I said, that's okay, I got a copy. They dismissed the case, by the way. It's kind of interesting. But so, the interesting thing was, though, is that this court was in an office building, and right across the street was a de jure courtroom with flags. This court had a coat of arms in it. You know how they have the courts, the coat of arms? And a little something about the coat of arms. You notice what's on the coat of arms?
Unicorn and a lion.
Right, and the
Fantasyland.
the lion has the unicorn enslaved.
Absolutely.
See that?
When was the last time
Unicorn.
you saw a unicorn?
Unicorn's the symbol of Israel.
Crazy.
Lion is the symbol of the Rothschild family.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, the unicorn's in chains. So anyways, that is what's in the courtrooms, a coat of arms. Think about that. That's a military symbol. And so right across the street was a courtroom that was sitting there empty. The whole time I was there, I drove by it several times, there was never anything going on in it. It was sitting there empty, it had flags in it. De jure flags, no gold fringe on them, nothing like that. It was a de jure courtroom. And you know what I think is they didn't want to use the de jure courtroom for their martial